No.
How about now?
Oh, I hit you right on the nipple.
The Rock, known to mere mortals as Dwayne Johnson, he might be the most popular actor in Hollywood today, and easily the biggest name to transcend out of WWE and go on to make massively successful films and TV shows. But he didn't start at the top. No, he actually started from some very challenging circumstances. The Rock didn't have it easy, despite his father, Rocky Johnson, being an established wrestler in his own right. For those who say, oh, he had the direct connection to WWE through his dad, and he didn't have to earn his way. Did you know that his father was once blacklisted from the top wrestling promotions? An early separation between his parents saw him live with his mother, where he faced evictions from apartments, a failed football career after a D1 college football career, and a low point of having only $7 in his pocket. It was after this that he made his father reluctantly train him before entering the WWE ranks, becoming eventually the biggest superstar in all of professional wrestling. Nobody has outdone his overall success within wrestling, but The Rock is one of many wrestlers that had to struggle before making it. Ask AJ Styles, who came from very meager means to become the phenomenal superstar that he is today. Growing up with a reportedly abusive and alcoholic father, he didn't get to enjoy the conventional things that some of us take for granted in our childhood, and lived in poverty, but would go on to become one of the greatest in-ring performers of his generation. So how did he end up becoming a professional wrestler, let alone the very best of his generation? Styles revealed that he wasn't able to pursue the general secondary education that most people get in college, and dropped out to get a real regular job to support himself. It was then at this point that two of his friends revealed they were going to train to become professional wrestlers, and then he decided to simply join them and try it out. He was a natural at it, and said something was triggered within him, telling him that this is what he was going to do for the rest of his life. The rest, as they say, is history. R-Truth has made a history without realizing it by being one of the funniest WWE superstars of his time. He seems to have a job for life with the WWE and is one of the most beloved performers on the roster with diehard and casual fans. But he came from some rough beginnings. Growing up in North Carolina, he lived in poverty, and that led him to selling drugs in his early 20s. He had multiple arrests to his name and 10 years in jail, but it was his 13-month stint in prison that turned him into an eye-opening path that would lead him to professional wrestling greatness. Although he was determined to pursue a career in rap music, a meeting with Jackie Crockett of the NWA resulted in the latter trying to convince Truth to join the ranks of pro wrestling. It took 2 years before he contacted Crockett and had his start, kickstarting what would become an incredible 2.5-decade and counting run in the business. That's right, Truth has been going that long. From being able to overcome such hardships to making millions of people around the world smile at the same time when he appears on television, Truth has become a true gem in the wrestling business, and dare we say, a first ballot Hall of Famer. Booker T is someone who dealt with similar challenges like R-Truth. He was the youngest of 8 children and lost both his parents at the age of 14. This unfortunately led to him getting mixed up with the wrong crowd, committing crimes, getting arrested, and convicted of armed robbery with a long jail sentence to follow. For Booker T, prison was the best thing that could have happened to him. In an interview with Lillian Garcia, he confirmed that his time in prison gave him the chance to reevaluate his life and all of his choices. Determined not to be the same type of person who would remain on the corner in his neighborhood living that negative life, he took a positive direction in his own hands and began his career in pro wrestling, eventually getting his big break in WCW in 1993. Batista, one of the biggest WWE superstars of the Ruthless Aggression era, someone who also broke big in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and a successful post-WWE Hollywood career, his life in Washington, D.C. as a child was challenging. He had 3 separate murders happen on his front lawn before he even turned 10. Yeah, this will affect someone. By the time he was a teenager, he was stealing cars, and a few years later, he cut ties with his parents, who were struggling immigrants trying to earn a living in the United States. He would become a father and had a bit of a dual life, where he was a bouncer at nightclubs and then spent hours in the gym afterward before coming home and sleeping all day. Times were tough, but the body that he could build into a professional wrestler was there. It was thanks to his time with gym connections and an early career in bodybuilding that gave him the credits to saving his life. After getting rejected by the WCW power plant during a tryout in the late 90s, he eventually signed with the WWE and began to work in their developmental territory with a class that included some of the all-time greats, like John Cena, Randy Orton, and others. His physique certainly gave him an edge, but he is the perfect example of a late bloomer in pro wrestling who discovered the sport in his 30s, much like Diamond Dallas Page. AJ Lee can hardly be considered a late bloomer, getting signed to the WWE at the age of 22. But growing up, she had to go through a lot of suffering to reach her success. She has been vocal about her battle with bipolar disorder, but it rarely gets mentioned that she had to grow up with her mother having to deal with the same disorder. This resulted in her going through a lot of emotional problems and also having to deal with financial issues and never really having a stable home. It was her love of pro wrestling that made her decide to pursue that as her path. And after dropping out of college due to financial problems that continued there, she worked a full-time job just to be able to afford wrestling training. She revealed that she had even not eaten full meals to afford a WWE tryout, which thankfully paid off when she was signed. Although her time on the big stage of WWE was short-lived and only lasted under 4 years, she is still credited as being one of the pivotal players to eventually push the women's revolution, something that essentially altered the course of WWE as we know it. Having never met his biological father, his mother was a single parent who worked multiple jobs just to make ends meet. Edge recalled living in a very rustic apartment with rickety old stairs he used to sneak in from behind so that nobody knew he lived there. Although his on-screen wrestling character is far from shy, Adam Copeland, aka Edge, grew up as a fairly shy kid who didn't enjoy the same privileges that other kids got to enjoy at that age. But it was wrestling. The one thing that was a bright light through all these tough times was always wrestling, and it helped him bond with a lifelong friend by the name of Jay Russo, aka Christian. When he was just 16 years old, he witnessed in person the Ultimate Warrior face Hulk Hogan in their classic match at WrestleMania 6 at Toronto's Sky Dome. And this would cement the dream in his mind. He would begin his pro wrestling path a year later, and he had to put a halt to it though, because he had to help his mom pay the bills and still had to finish college and was $40,000 in debt. It wasn't soon after that he signed with WWE as a rookie, working his way out of the independent ranks. He later revealed that Jim Ross signed him a bonus check of $40,000 to clear his college debt, helping him start from zero to become the Hall of Famer that we know he is today. Which other superstars do you want to hear about with their origin stories of tough times to making it to the big time of WWE? Let us know in the comments section below.